Now I'm going to take apart this Phantom and try to figure out what needs to happen to install this gimbal. Alright, taking off the landing gear, unscrewed this screw, this screw, this screw, and this screw on each one of these arms. And then you just lift it apart and you're now inside the Phantom. Let's unhook the GPS. We need to figure out a way to flip this over. Not a pro solder, but luckily I have a solder station which makes people who aren't very good at soldering a little bit better. Right now I'm just pre-tinning, just getting a little bit of solder on it to hopefully make it connect easier when we go to hook it into the power. So you just have to take both of these and get them powered. We decided to go ahead and match up the wires with the gauge that's a little bit larger, just because for some reason they put large gauge on here. I thought it would be okay to pull off this smaller wire, but just to be safe, we're going to go ahead and pop on right here. So that's what I'm going to work on right now, is just getting these connected there. Red to red and black to gray. Okay, when you're soldering, if you have a solder station, when you're soldering onto pre-existing solder that's like come from a factory, you might try turning up the heat a little bit. It makes connecting to this a little more. For just normal soldering, I'm at like 700 degrees. But for connecting to something that's existing, I'm gonna turn it up to like maybe 800 and hope that that makes it a little bit easier to connect. So some of the hardest soldering you can do, in my opinion, is getting connected to factory soldered stuff. The connection's pretty good, but I'm having a hard time getting it the way I would prefer it to be. I just can't get the factory solder to melt and just kind of bond with the other solder. So I'm just trying to make it good, make it perfect, but it's probably okay now. It's on there enough, so hopefully it conducts electricity well enough. Just get an extra solder on there to hopefully make the connection easier. There's probably a trick to soldering to this kind of stuff that you can learn about on YouTube. I just haven't done it. I probably should. You probably should too if you're doing this. After you've got these wires soldered on and you're happy with the connection, the next thing you have to do is run the GPS through this and basically just stick the PMU in between the GPS and the NASA. So we already unplugged the GPS right here, so it's real easy. There's a thing that says GPS in on here, so you just plug that in, and then you get this wire, comes right out, and then you just plug it in the slot that the GPS came out of. Just like that. Then you have this other cable here. There's only one other place it can go. So you connect the PMU with the GCU. And now we're ready to stash it and get it plugged into the NASA and see how this thing works. Okay, next what you need to do is you need to take the new X3, which is right here, and unplug the old X3, which is right there. And it's this wire kind of running up off the side right next to the power cables right there. So you just come through, unplug that, and then you get the new X3, yellow wire down, that's your signal wire, and you plug it in. There. Okay, now this the old X3 wire, you do not need it anymore. So you can just wrap it around these wires, tuck it in, do whatever you want with it, cut it off probably, doesn't matter. Okay, after you finished unplugging the old X3 and plugging in the new X3, next you need this G8 wire, or whatever it's called. Yeah, G8 wire. And you plug it in to the GCU right there, and then you plug the other end into the gimbal itself, and I believe that is how the whole thing talks. So we take this. Obviously we're going to stash everything, but we're just doing this for testing purposes. Okay, so now that we've seen how everything wires up, now we kind of have to start packing everything in. This needs to come out of the Phantom and get to the gimbal. So somehow it might fit through one of these 4 holes that the auxiliary wire goes through, some of these other, I guess it's the compass wire and the antenna wire. So we're going to see if we can get this to fit through here. You just take this little plastic grommet thing out. I'm just using my hand and came right out. And I don't really see how this is going to fit there, but it looks like the GPS got through, so it's a tight fit, and it's going to feel like you're kind of breaking it. So be careful when
you got to get the right angle.
Got to get the right angle. Gavin, how would you describe how we managed to quasi-fit this through here?
Well, you just go the long way.
Okay, so when we were jamming this wire through, we kind of broke the plastic casing off this wire a little bit. If you go to do it and you're going to go through one of these little holes, I recommend you use a Dremel and just make it a little bit larger. I wish we had done that in the first place, but we did not, so we put a little bit of repair tape where we tore the wire and hope that everything still works. I don't see why it wouldn't, but you never know.